Today we're on pages 328 and 329 of our textbook. Lesson 17 of Unit 10, Solving Rational Equations. There's 5 steps that we'll be following to solve an equation that contains fractions. First thing, make note of when each fraction is undefined, that is, when the denominator would equal 0. Determine or build the least common denominator. Once you have your least common denominator, you're going to multiply the entire equation by the least common denominator to get rid of all our fractions. You solve the resulting equation, and then if any root, any solution, any value for x is a value from step 1, reject it as an extraneous solution. Right, so solving each. For number 1, we have x over 6 equals 6 minus 1 over x. Make note of when each fraction is undefined. Well, here we have the variable x in this fraction, so we state that x cannot equal 0 because otherwise it will be undefined. The least common denominator for 6, and x is 6x. So the common denominator is 6x. We're going to multiply the entire equation by 6x. So I put parentheses around the equation and put 6x out in front, or in this case I put it behind. Now we're taking 6x and multiplying each term there. So we're taking 6x times x over 6 equals 6x times 5, 6 minus 6x times 1 over x. And when we do that, before I multiply these first two terms, the 6's divide out, so we're left with simply x times x, which is x squared, equals 6x times 5, 6, the 6's divide out, x times 5 is 5x, and 6x times 1 over x, the x's divide out, we're left with 6 times 1, which is 6. So now we have the quadratic equation, x squared equals 5x minus 6. We no longer have fractions, so now we go about solving our quadratic equation, putting it in standard form, subtracting 5x and then adding 6, and now factoring. The factors of positive 6 that sum to negative 5 are negative 3 and negative 2. And then set each factor equal to 0. So x equals 3, x minus 2 equals 0, x equals 2. We just need to check. Back in step 1, we said that x could not be 0. So x values of 3 and 2 are our solutions. Number 2, we actually have 4 fractions here, and yes, you could subtract a half from both sides and combine and get negative 2 halves, right? But if I leave it as is, let's make note, x cannot equal negative 3. Because if it does, then we would have 0 here for a denominator, which is not real. Now, what is our least common denominator? We need the x plus 3. 2 does go into 6, so we need an x plus 3 and 6. That's going to be our least common denominator. We put parentheses around our entire equation. And now I'm not going to write out this step here, but rather think of it this way. Taking 6 times x plus 3. If I take 6 times x plus 3 times this fraction, the x plus 3's divide out, and we'll be left with 6 times negative 3, which is negative 18. I'm taking 1/2 times 6 times x plus 3. Well, this 2 divides into 6, leaving us with a 3. So we have plus 3 times x plus 3 equals 6 times x plus 3 times this fraction, x over 6. The 6's divide out. We are left with x times x plus 3 minus 6 times x plus 3 times 1/2. 2 is going to go into 6 3 times, leaving us with 3 times x plus 3. Distribute and combine like terms on the left-hand side and then on the right-hand side. Left-hand side I have 3x minus 9, and on the right-hand side x squared minus 9. Since I have an x squared on the right-hand side, I'm going to bring the two terms on the left over to the right. Subtracting 3x, and then adding 9 to negative 9 is 0. Factoring, there's a GCF x times x minus 3. Set each factor equal to 0. X equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. X equals negative 3. But we have to reject this as extraneous. X cannot equal negative 3. Our only solution is x equals 0. Number 3. Looking at this equation, y cannot equal 7. Y cannot be 7. The least common denominator is 2 times y minus 7. So I'm going to put the 2 times y minus 7 out in front, and I'm multiplying every single fraction here by that. So 2 times y minus 7 times this fraction, the y minus 7's divide out, that leaves me with 2 times 3y minus 2 times y minus 7 times 3 over 2, the 2's divide out, leaving us with 3 times y minus 7. And this fraction times this, the y minus 7's are out, we're left with 2 times 21. So 6y minus 3y, make sure you pick up the negative there, plus 21 equals 42. This is a linear equation. Combining, we get 3y plus 21 equals 42. Subtract 21 and divide by 3. Y equals 7. But this is extraneous. Y cannot equal 7, because then we'll have a fraction here that's undefined, which is not real. So there's no solution here. The empty set, no solution. With number 4, with this denominator here of x squared minus 36, factor it. X plus 6 times x minus 6, it's a difference of perfect squares. Make note, x cannot equal a -6 or a +6. x cannot equal 6 or negative 6. The least common denominator is x plus 6 times x minus 6. We're going to multiply the entire equation by x plus 6 times x minus 6. Covering this up, taking the first fraction, multiplying it by x plus 6 times x minus 6, the x plus 6's divide out. So we're left with x times x minus 6. Taking the second equation here, the second fraction, right? They both divide out. So we're just left with 16 equals. And taking the last fraction, covering these up, see how the x minus 6's divide out? We're left with 1 times x plus 6. Distribute x squared minus 6x plus 16 equals x plus 6. Bring these two terms over to the left-hand side, subtract x, and subtract 6. And now factor the factors of positive 10 that sum to negative 7, negative 5, and negative 2. X minus 5 times x minus 2 equals 0. So x equals 5 and x equals positive 2. Just check. Our step 1, we said that x could not be negative 6 or positive 6. So 5 and positive 2 are solutions. With number 5, we'll go to this denominator, factor it, GCF x times x minus 5. The least common denominator is x times x minus 5. Taking this first fraction, timesing it by this, the x minus 5's divide out, we're left with x times x minus 1. Taking the second fraction, timesing it by this, the x's divide out, 1 times x minus 5. And taking this fraction, multiplying by this, the x and the x minus 5 divide out, we're left with 20. Distribute. This is subtraction here. That's negative x plus 5 equals 20. Combining like terms. Bring 20 over to the other side. We have x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. Factors of negative 15 that sum to negative 2 are negative 5 and 3. X minus 5 times x plus 3 equals 0. X equals 5, x equals negative 3. And I failed to do step 1 above. I never stated x cannot equal positive 5 or 0. Positive 5 or 0. So we have to reject the positive 5. This is extraneous. Our only solution is x equals negative 3. With number 6, x cannot equal negative 3, cannot equal negative 6. Now, these are two equal fractions. We call this proportions, so you can simply just cross multiply. The cross products are equal. So I'd say x times x plus 6 equals 8 times x plus 3. Distribute. Standard form, bring the 8x and 24 over to the left-hand side. And factor. Factors of negative 24 that sum to negative 2 are negative 6 and 4. write to the solutions. X equals positive 6, X equals negative 4. Positive 6 is okay. It was negative 6 that was not. So 6 and negative 4. And we have one more problem on the top of the next page. Again, here you could subtract 3 and combine it with the 5. If I don't do that and just leave it as is, make note x cannot equal positive 1, and that is the least common denominator, is x minus 1. So we're multiplying the entire equation by x minus 1. X times x minus 1 3 times x minus 1 minus the x minus 1 divide out, we're just left with the minus 4. And on the other side we have 5 times x minus 1. Distribute and combine like terms. Bring these two terms over to the other side. Go over this way. X squared minus 3x minus 2 equals 0. Negative 2 and 1, nope, this does not factor. It's not factorable. Okay, so when it's not factorable, quadratic formula or complete the square. The coefficient of x is odd, so I don't think most of you would try complete the square because we'll end up with fractions. So, quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. b is negative 3. a is 1, and c is negative 2. That's 9 plus 8 is 17. So we have two solutions here. I will split it up. The radical cannot be simplified. We have 3 halves plus or minus the square root of 17 halves. This is our solution. 3 halves plus the square root of 17 halves and 3 halves minus the square root of 17 halves. X could not equal 1. Thank you very much for your attention.